Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at the subreddit r/prorevenge, where people tell us their best stories on when they got revenge on someone or something they didn't like. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax and enjoy some pro-revenge stories. He said he was going to ruin my reputation. I destroyed his life. Because the law is involved, I'm going to be super vague about some details. I went on a gap year from university, and when I came back, I needed to find some flatmates. There were 3 guys from campus that I didn't know, and this other guy, Dave, who is doing the same degree. Dave is probably 10 years older than me. Dave said he knew the other guys, and they were cool. And everyone I talked to in positions of authority said Dave was a great person. Dave had been renting an apartment for 2 years, and his landlord had recently bought a deceased estate, and he transferred us onto that lease and we moved in together. Dave was not a great housemate, but it wasn't anything too serious. Until the exam period, if things in the house weren't exactly how he wanted them, he would get angry. At the same time, he would not do the dishes, and he would take up the most space in the kitchen and bathroom with his stuff that nobody was allowed to touch. The rest of us started to become friends, and we would eat together every night. At 6ish, Bill would come home and start prepping dinner. Then, a bit later, Kev and Pete would come home and help. I would join them, and we would eat and chat, then go to bed. After exams, Dave started partying and coming home drunk. Then, he stopped leaving the house but continued to drink. He started being angry over little things like making noises after 8 PM, who was eating his food. No one was, all he ate was bacon, my housemates are Muslim, and I ate what they made. Especially towards Kev for some reason. One second he would love Kev, and the next he would hate him. Dave lost his job a few days later. We felt bad and he was struggling to pay rent, so we started making him dinner. I'm a bad cook, so it was mostly the other boys, and they even made him an extra portion for lunch. The guys wanted to try something new. It required a blender. Dave walked in and accused the guys of using his blender. Remembering they are making him dinner, also it wasn't his. Kev turns on the blender while he is talking and Dave snaps. Dave starts yelling and grabs Kev by the neck and pushes him outside. Our landlord begged us to give him a week because he had been perfect for the previous 2 years, and she knew him through church. I said if he was still a problem in 5 days, all 4 of us were leaving. Worrying about losing the 4 of us, she agreed. We went to the police and they took a statement, but said it wasn't violent enough for him to get arrested. The next day, we sat him down and told him to stop drinking. I knew what was going to happen, so I made a plan. I was going to get him out. He got angry but let us pour his whiskey down the sink. He was literally shaking with rage as I poured. He was still sneaking drinks and was getting angry. The other boys are Asian and me and Dave are white, so of course, he started being racist. He started saying Kev was a douchebag for being disrespectful about the blender, and so he was justified in being aggressive. Every time he got angry, I would call him out. I told him I was going to take a path of least effort to get him out of the house. After 5 days, I called the landlord and said that Dave had to go. The landlord said Dave could move back to his original apartment. He saw this as a challenge to his dominance, or something equally as stupid, and said that it was his house. So, I made it clear to him that I had told the landlord he was still drinking. Then, he started threatening me, and he said that he was going to ruin my life at home and uni. I set up a camera after he passed out from the vodka he wasn't drinking. Now, it was a waiting game. The next day, he started. I wasn't scared because he had been drunk every day for 2 weeks. He could barely walk, so when I got home, he walked into the kitchen and started. I laughed at him and he got more annoyed, and he let out a slew of abuse. I basically told him how much I hated him. I'm a white immigrant who moved here when I was a baby, so you can't actually tell. So he started comparing me to them, the other housemates, like they were lesser and now I was lesser. Then he started challenging me to fight him. When I told him I wasn't going to hit him, he told me that all of the people of my background were tough. I was like, okay. Then he hit me. I deflected it. I'm not particularly big or strong, but he was super drunk, so it wasn't hard for me to dodge his punches. Bill came to see what was happening, so I told him to call the police. That was a mistake. While I was distracted, Dave hit me in the face. The police came, and I was completely fine, so they couldn't arrest him for assault. Apparently, it's a civil matter. But I could get a restraining order the next morning. He came out to taunt me after the cops left because he was still in his house. Okay, pro-revenge time. I got a restraining order and he now isn't allowed within 500 meters of me or my uni. Basically, I spend most of my time in the field. Our field research center is at a public dock that Dave used to work at as a mechanic there. He also picked up seasonal work at a few other places in the dock, like refueling and engine work. All the other unis have their field centers at the same dock, so basically, he was banned from everywhere. So I took great joy in sending and emailing to all the companies in the dock, informing them that if he showed up there, he was in violation of the order. As part of the degree, we get 2 special licenses, and there is a medical requirement. So I informed them of his drinking, and he was put under medical review and had his license stripped from him and is now unable to obtain the second license. The best bit was when he checked out the equipment for personal use, which means he had to pay for it. He took it for a spin with our housemate, Bill, and asked him to pay him back, which is technically an illegal charter operation. I got Bill to write everything down and send it off to the relevant authority, so now he is under investigation for illegal charter operations. Also, the dates of his partying line up with his equipment rental, and there are pictures of him drinking before and after he checked out the equipment. He has nowhere to live, so he is sleeping in his car. He has been kicked out of uni. He has to go to court for both assaults and the restraining order. He has to go to court for running illegal charters and operations under the influence. He can't ever finish his degree, and he can't get any of the seasonal work he was counting on. I don't know how right I'm going to be with saying this, but I'm pretty sure Dave ruined his life himself by becoming an alcoholic. Like, OP did kind of get a restraining order, but that's what you have to do. You're not going to let some guy ruin your life. Yeah, he kind of ruined himself. Roommate didn't know what respect was. Brief backstory. I grew up in a small Tennessee college town, ended up leaving for 4 years for high school, came back for college. During middle and elementary school, I had a close friend, who we'll call Bree. Bree was a very bright young girl, good supportive family, had her future pretty set up. I ended up falling out of contact quickly when I left the town, yet when I came back the summer before college to look for a place, I was staying with extended family who lived too far from the college to commute. We had bumped into each other at a fast food chain. Turns out, her parents had divorced, and she went through a total I hate my parents phase. Her parents were probably some of the nicest people I knew, to be honest. That was evidently still ongoing. Since she confided in me, she was trying to move out. What a coincidence. We get back in contact, agree to house hunt together. She seemed the same, honestly, if not a little more opinionated. We eventually settle for an apartment. Good neighborhood, close by for me. I managed to snag a job, while her parents were sending her money for her rent and whatnot. I had plenty in my savings from working my butt off the second I turned 16, and a few good scholarships, so money wasn't a horrible worry for me. We signed the lease, everything is grand. Until the weekend. School didn't start for another 2 weeks, so it's not like I really needed the beauty sleep. However, it's still incredibly annoying to wake up finding your living room filled with random people, and the very heavy scent of weed in the air. In case you didn't know, weed is illegal in Tennessee. I shrug it off. I'm not about to tell her how to live her life. She probably just throwing a housewarming party with some of her newer friends. I'm not exactly the most social person, so when I went out, because I couldn't fall back asleep, I just sat on the couch looking blankly at the TV. The thing is, I have very good ears. Listening to the random conversation around me, I gathered many of these people were very into doing illegal actions. A lot of it was centered around weed. There were 3 different kids with backpacks, which I would later learn were dealers. It was a weed fest. I'm not personally against weed, I've tried it a few times and it just really didn't float my boat. Live and let live is my motto. The night went on as a normal party. A few beers, a lot of blunts, the usual. I didn't partake and ended up going back to bed as soon as the noise died down enough. The week went by normally. Had a brief conversation with Bree about the spontaneous party. Oh, just wanted to show my friends my new place. Yeah, right. The next weekend, same deal. Tons of people, tons of music, tons of weed. Now, I'm a little annoyed, but no trouble had come our way, so I wasn't going to throw a hissy fit. Just kidding, the trouble came the morning after. I went out to grab some snacks and got stopped by a guy. Hey, do you live in that apartment? He pointed to my apartment. Yes, I confirmed. Could you perhaps dial down the weed smell on the weekends? I mean, I get it. I smoke too, but the smell keeps traveled through the vents to my baby's room. He requested. Oh, of course, I'll talk to my roommate. To make a long, annoying talk with her short, she didn't care. The next weekend, she was smoking again. I spent the entire night in front of the vent in the living room, spraying it down with Febreze and some scentless spray a dealer gave me when he saw what I was doing. It didn't help. Sunday, he was at our front door, explaining to both myself and Bree that if we didn't dial it back, his wife would be calling the cops. She did, the next weekend. There were usually 20 to 30 people in the area for her parties. They weren't huge, but I've still never seen that many people duck behind furniture and dive into rooms as they did when the now all too familiar cop knock hit the door. Seriously, it took them half a second to scatter, and surprisingly quietly too. So, there was a cop at my door, for a party I wasn't even involved in. What the heck? They ended up being pretty chill, saying, "We get it, just dial it down," and leaving, but that was just the beginning. They came 2 more times, each time with the same response, but on the 3rd visit, they ended up scanning our IDs. I do not need this stuff on my record. They easily had probable cause. The attendees always left at least one piece out in the open, like idiots. I usually put up with a lot before I snap, and after countless pleading with Bree, she still refused to stop the partying. I decided I'd have to make them leave. The next party, the cops would no doubt surface. I managed to drag Bree out of the house to the grocery store, claiming I'd buy her snacks. Leaving her to choose, I left to the bathroom and made a rather nerve-wracking call. I knew if they showed up while we were gone, the attendees would have to open the door. Since they were playing music so loudly, the police would know they were home. I kept Bree occupied as long as I could before she got a frantic call from one of her lovely friends. The cops were there. With no one in their right mind, the cops ended up opening the door to 8 stoned people. Bree immediately forced us to leave and go back home, and minutes after arriving, 3 of her friends were pulled away in handcuffs. Apparently, they had warrants. I was always listening to them while they partied. I'm surprised only 3 were taken. Sending everyone home, I slept like a baby. Nobody came over after that, since our house was officially a hotspot for cops. And it wasn't long until my friend wanted to move out. I ended up meeting a nice guy who was still looking for a place in college, and he eventually signed onto the lease to replace Bree. Looking back, this was honestly incredibly stupid, seeing as I could have been charged as well if they had searched the house, since I was on the lease. But seeing her friends, which I had slowly been growing a festering hate towards, get dragged away in handcuffs was incredibly satisfying. They did end up getting released a few days later after making some deal, so their lives weren't totally ruined. Haven't talked to Bree since though. I personally have nothing against it, but when the guy said, "Oh, it's going into my baby's room," it's like, that's when you should probably stop, because that's just not cool. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like, and if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.